Hello mathematicians and welcome to Number Corner. For Number Corner today, we will be working with our daily rectangle, recording rectangles. Today, you will need your Number Corner book and a pencil. We will be working on page 93. You can pause the video now to get what you need. I have drawn and labeled the dimensions for today's rectangles. Can you imagine what the frames would look like if they were filled with tiles? How many tiles would there be in each row and each column? How many tiles in the whole rectangle? Take a moment to look at each frame and think about how many tiles there would be. Let's start with our top frame right here. Our frame is 1 tile high, and it would be 24 tiles long. How many rows do you see in this rectangle? Show me on your fingers. Yeah, you should be showing me 1. There's 1 row. How many tiles are in this 1 row? You can't show me on your fingers, but there are 24. There are 24 tiles in this 1 row. So how many tiles in the whole rectangle? Show a connection if you're thinking 24. That's good thinking. How about this rectangle here? How many rows do you see? How many tiles are in each row? How many columns do you see? And how many tiles in each column? Well, if you're looking at our numbers on the sides, you might be thinking that there are 4 rows. And if we follow our blue lines on the top, we can count our 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 tiles in each row. We can also see that with our 6 labeled at the top. So we have 4 rows of 6 tiles, or 6 columns of 4 tiles. How many tiles do we have in this rectangle altogether? Show a connection if you're thinking 24 again. Yeah, you may have thought of that in a few different ways. One way is you may have thought of 6 plus 6 as a double for these 2 rows to make 12. And if there are 12 in these 2 rows, there must be 12 in these 2 rows, and 12 plus 12 is another double to make 24. That's good thinking. If our first 2 rectangles have 24 tiles, how many tiles must our next 2 rectangles have? Now show a connection if you're thinking 24 again. That's good thinking. If we're looking at our next rectangle, we can see again that we have labels here and a label here. We have 1, 2, 3 rows. And in each row, we have 8 tiles. And I know that 8 plus 8 equals 16. And if I add 8 more to 16, again, I have 24. So this rectangle also has 24 tiles. Now let's check our bottom rectangle. Again, we have 2 by 12 for our labels. Well, I know that 12 plus another 12, my 2 rows here, 1 row, 2 rows, equals 24. All of my rectangles, even though they're different shapes, have the same amount of tiles. Let's fill that in on our chart in our Number Corner books on page 93. Now, we're going to be filling in our labels and equations for our 24 tiles. You can fill in on your sheet. These numbers I've already put in. These are the labels for our 4 rectangles we could make with 24 tiles. Let's fill these in now. Now let's think of an equation for our 1 by 24 rectangle. You can take a moment to look back at some of our past days to see the equations for those long, skinny rectangles we've made before. Is this an equation that you are thinking of? For this long, skinny rectangle, show a connection if you were thinking 1 times 24 equals 24. Yeah, that's showing our 1 row of 24 tiles just one time. Let's think now about our 4 by 6 rectangle. Think about the rows and the columns we saw. One of the equations you may be thinking of is 6 plus 6 plus 6 plus 6 is equal to 24. This equation is showing our 4 rows of 6 tiles each. We could also write this equation in a shorter way. Because we're seeing 4 rows with 6 tiles each, we're really seeing those 6 tiles 4 times. To write 6 times 4 is also equal to 24. You may have thought of a different equation for this one, too. Let's have a look at our next rectangle. That was 3 by 8. Think again about your rows and columns and write an equation. Is this one of the equations that you were thinking of? 8 plus 8 is also equal to 24? Yeah, that's good thinking. This shows our 3 rows of 8 tiles each. We can also show our 3 rows of 8 tiles by saying we see those 8 tiles 3 times to equal 24. Let's look at our last one now. You may have had different equations for this rectangle too. Now let's look at the last one. Write an equation for our 2 by 12 rectangle. Did you write this equation? Show a connection if you did. 12 plus 12 is equal to 24. That's a good equation. That shows our 2 rows of 12. We can also show our 2 rows of 12 by saying 2 times 12 equals 24. We see a row of 12 twice to equal 24. You may have thought of some different equations for all of these rectangles. We were thinking about the rows. You may have been thinking about the columns. Either way works. Now today, instead of filling in the rest of our days, we're going to think a little bit about area. It's okay that you'll have these last 3 days left blank. We're going to jump right in to area today. Let's have a look at what our rectangles look like now that they're all filled in with tiles. Now we are looking at our rectangles that are all filled in. And I'm thinking of one of our rectangles. We have a rectangle that says 4 by 6. This is one that we labeled. Now we wrote 4 by 6 to show the dimensions of today's rectangle. Why did we write that? What does it mean? Now you may be thinking back to what we just did. Yeah, it means we have 4 rows of 6 tiles each. If we add those 4 rows of 6 each, we get 24. Our label matches our dimensions, our equation to show 24 tiles. This is how we show the area of a rectangle. The area is the space inside a shape. You found the area of all of these rectangles today. You've been finding the area of rectangles all month. You'll be working more on this as you continue in math. For today, we'll be all finished. Before you go, remember to take that picture of your daily rectangle page, recording rectangles, to show your teacher and Seesaw. And I will see you next time for Number Corner.